everybody, and welcome back to Exploring the Lord of the Rings. This is session number 357, which doesn't sound like a particularly notable episode, but this is a very notable episode because this begins a 3-slide sequence of the actual confrontation with the Balrog on the bridge of Khazad-dûm. This is gotta be a top 10 passage in the whole Lord of the Rings. This has been a passage we have been excited to get to. We have been drawing slowly and slowly closer to it now for months, and we are there. We are there this week, which is Thanksgiving week in America. We are being introduced to the Balrog. Lupita, I agree, and it took less than a decade to get here, right? So what more could anyone ask for? It's something to be thankful for, Miss Ray. You're absolutely right. I'd like to say a special welcome to Andrew's parents who are joining us this evening. Glad you could join us here tonight. And yes, Adam, I agree. Been anticipating this since Weathertop. That's the one I would go back to. I mean, going back to Weathertop is a tradition after all. But no, seriously, like the confrontation at Weathertop was another one of those really big moments, that I was very excited to look at. I mean, I think it's really the kind of even more than the Flight to the Fort. The Flight to the Fort is awesome too, but the confrontation at Weathertop I think is really cool. But yeah, I doubt we'll spend 6 months on this. It's not in poetry after all, trifle. But speaking of which, my goodness. So I won't talk about this too much because I spent like 4 hours on it on Saturday night. But if you didn't get a chance to see the Signum University Webathon on Saturday night, which fair and square I told you about last Tuesday, something really cool happened at the Webathon on Thursday night. And I'm not referring to the State of the University address, which was also really fun. And I recommend you read the Signum University, listen to the Signum University State of the University address on the Signum YouTube channel, because it was really important. But in the evening, at the end of the Webathon, for like the last 4 hours of the Webathon or something like that, three to 4 hours, I was doing a discussion of the of Tom Bombadil. We did a stanza by stanza reading of the original history of Tom Bombadil poem that was published in the Oxford Magazine in 1934, and then we went back and reread the end of the Old Forest chapter again. We covered that in this class already, but that's of course like when they meet Tom Bombadil and he rescues them from Old Man Willow, and it was amazing. Amazing. I can speak Tom Bombadil now. Like it was transformational. Going through the original poem, because I've never really sat down with that poem and looked at the rhythmic patterns the way that we were doing. Holy cow. Like, I feel like I absolutely get, it was like learning a language. It was like a moment when you're learning a language and, sorry, did I say Thursday? I meant Saturday. Anyway, it was Saturday. It was Saturday night is when I was talking about. Anyway, it's like that moment when you like suddenly realize you can like understand a foreign language. Like I get, like you can see the patterns. I see how Tom Bombadil, like how Tolkien has encoded in the meter of Tom Bombadil's poetry, Tom Bombadil's use of magic, like how the song, it's so cool. I can't even describe it. It would take me like another hour to go through and show you examples and stuff, but it was really, really cool. So I strongly, like, you guys will like connect with it because we've already talked about that passage and stuff, but I'm telling you, like, you will never hear Tom Bombadil's verse poems again. Exactly. Dark Satanic Biscuit Factory, which is a really amazing name, by the way. I can now explain how his songs are stronger. Like, you're able to see it, like Tom measuring up against his opponents, right? You can see how much stronger his songs are. And then when he doesn't use it, oh, exactly. I'm telling you, Heradiel, like, I was literally tearing up at the end, and that's so good, so good. Anyway, so like, I just like, I can speak Tom Bombadil now, and I am so excited. So uh, just wanted to share that because so yeah, if you get a chance, it's a two-part stream. So I did the first part on the history of Tom Bombadil, which is what the poem was titled when it was published in 1934, and then the second part of it is on the Fellowship of the Ring, the Old Forest stuff. And I could have done a lot more, but I had already gone on for like 4 hours, and B, I had been already talking for the last 9 hours solid and was completely losing my voice. So we stopped. But anyway, just recommend. It is so good. It was so much fun. And I was thinking of you guys. I'm like, I can't wait to tell them about this on Tuesday night. Oh my goodness. Bob, it would be fun to go back and look. Now I really want to go back and do what I didn't get a chance to do, which was to look at the Bombadil Goes Boating poem, the sort of sequel poem that he wrote later on in 1960. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be fun. So anyway, we'll see. I'm sure there will be another opportunity to go back to it. But that was so amazing. And of course, by the way, also little spoiler. Remember how we've been looking at the alliterative stuff, in the prose descriptions, and we really started paying attention. At least I really finally started paying attention to that right around Carathros, you'll recall. And that's been, kind of this ongoing theme that we have been appreciating every time especially Tolkien's like descriptive paragraphs. So it was kind of cool going back and reading. I read much more. We covered like 20 slides, by the way. Like, it was amazing. Because I was going faster on purpose. I was just like reading whole passages, and going through and reading those passages in the Old Forest, it was like, dude, it was everywhere. The alliteration, like in his descriptions of the Old Forest, like you could completely see. Like, now that I know to look for that, going back. So basically, we have to start and like do all of book 1 again now, apparently, and the Council of Elrond. So I'm just saying, at some point, we're gonna have to redo all of that, apparently. Anyway, we'll see. Let's get Sam back to Bag End at re-exploring the Lord of the Rings, Miss Ray. That's the scene. People are like, what are you going to do when you finish the Lord of the Rings? That's what, re-exploring the Lord of the Rings. That's probably what we're going to do. Yeah, and we'll start it. I think I suspect we'll be able to start it before 2070. I'm sure I'll be done by 2065, which would be good because then it'll be before I turn 100. So that'll be good. Anyway, all right. So but I come of a long-lived family on my mother's side. So I as I've said many times, yes. What do you explore apart from Lord of the Rings? More Lord of the Rings. Exactly. Okay. Anyway, but that wasn't even my announcement. That was just like a spontaneous share. My announcement, because there is an important announcement. This was another thing that was announced on Saturday, not Thursday, but Saturday. And that is Mythmoot. So Mythmoot registration is open. For those of you who have joined us at Mythmoot, you will know A, how much fun that is, and B, that for the last 2 years, we have had enormous difficulties, logistical difficulties with our venue, which have prevented us opening registration before like the last minute. We've been opening for our June event. We've been opening registration in like April for the last couple of years. That's been really bad in lots of ways. But this year, everything's ready. Right now, in November, registration's open, housing is open, the theme is announced, our guests of honor are announced, call for papers is open, the whole thing, everything is ready right now before Thanksgiving. So I just wanted to show you. So if you go to BlackBerry, right, Nancy, this bureaucracy for the win. Actually, this was like having a stern talk with bureaucracy for the win. We Laurel and I sat down with the, like, we even had got like the general manager of the venue seated at the table with us and like had a serious talking to with them, and we got it all squared away. But anyway, okay. So go to blackberry.signumuniversity.org, and then down in the events column down here, you will see Mythmoot 13. And this is Mythmoot 13. So one of the things that's enormously exciting about having registration for Mythmoot open this early is that we have early bird pricing again. We haven't been able to do early bird pricing in 2 years. So you can get, so you've got two things here. So one thing that's quite different, apart from like the timeliness of it, one thing is we're doing very differently this year. All of the registration, sorry, not just the registration, all of the lodging is done through BlackBerry upfront. So before it was really confusing because you bought your ticket, your registration from us, and then you had to we had to give you a link to the NCC, the National Conference Center website, and then you do go and buy it from them. And it was often really, there were a bunch of things that would often kind of happen with that. And now you just do it all here. You just do it all in one place. So just to make sure that people understand, so you can share rooms, and there's a different price for the sharing rooms. So if you're going to share a room with someone, like, or like if you're going to come with your family or something, then you just, you click on the multiple persons one. And it's much easier. So anyway, if you have any questions about this, feel free to send your questions to events at signumu.org. They will help you with that. But yeah, you can get your registration. Oh, and wait, there's more. Registration is much cheaper this year. We're able to cut the price as well. Thanks to the generosity of, so we've got several people who are helping to support this event this year so that we could keep the price as low as possible, which was really, really awesome. So like many thanks to folks in our community who have been helping with that. So the price is $395 this year, $200 cheaper than last year. For those of you who've never been to Mythmoot before, some of you have been to our regional moots, which are fantastic. And our regional moots are a wonderful opportunity to spend, normally they're one-day events, but it's a great opportunity to spend a day in the company of people who like get your jokes and your references and like love the stuff that you love. And it's a really, really wonderful opportunity. However, Mythmoot it's that, but it's a whole like 4-day retreat. Essentially, it really is. It's a conference, sorta, but it's really more of a retreat than a conference. This is why we love the National Conference Center. You are coming to this really quiet location in this huge, quirky, fun building where all of your food is provided for. Like you'll get 3 meals a day plus like multiple snacks and all the hot and cold beverages you can drink all day long. And that's all included in your registration price. You know, all of your food for the weekend is all included. So, you know, you get to come and like the place is just, it's so perfect, like for whatever you want to do, right? If you want to be like hanging out with folks and doing fun things, if you want to be sitting and listening to interesting talks, if you want to, you know, find one of the hundreds of like nooks and couches and places where you can go and you know, sit with friends and have quiet conversations. If you want to go out for a walk through the woods down by the Potomac on your own to, you know, have some alone time, you totally can. Yes, Jackie, lots of coffee all the time. Yeah. Well, they stopped serving coffee at like 10 o'clock p.m. or something like that. So, you know, but I usually can find a drinks machine that's still distributing something, you know, at like 1 or 2 in the morning. You have to know where to look, but you know, we can help with that. Yeah. Anyway, it's just, and then like, you know, every evening, you know, hanging out around the fire pits, you know, outside with friends, and that is just the hours that I spend out by the fire pits having conversations with people, sometimes in small groups, sometimes in big groups, is just awesome. So Mythmoot is just a wonderful like community experience. It's like a big a big warm family gathering for days, and it is really, really fun. Anyway, that's now Fourth Dauntless, we have not had things like a D&D group meeting at Mythmoot, but that is something that would be really fun to arrange. And actually, if you're interested in that, Fourth Dauntless, you should send an email to events@signumu.org and say, like, hey, I'm planning to come to Mythmoot, and I would love to, like, I think it'd be really great if we could have like a D&D campaign that weekend or something. That would be really, really cool. That would be cool. But we did do, we have had a couple one-shot sessions and things that we've done in times past before. There are definitely things that we can do, but I think it'd be fun to integrate that. Anyway, that is the big news, is that Mythmoot registration is open. Of course, we're looking forward to a very full, in fact, 5 moots in 4 months, 6 moots in 5 months is what is going to be happening in the beginning of the year. So Mythmoot is in June. The dates, of course, I should know the dates. There we go. The 25th through the 28th is Mythmoot this year. So that's always right around the time it is, the end of June. And we have Osmoot in Canberra, Australia, happening in January. We have SoCal Moot in February. In the beginning of February, 7th, I think. We have Sunshine Moot happening in March down in Orlando. We have Tex Moot happening in Houston in April 11th, I believe. And then we have Mountain Moot out in Colorado in the beginning of May. And we have Willow Moot in Leuven, Belgium at the end of May. So I'll be on, the first 5 months of the coming of 2026 will be 6 moots in 3 different continents in 5 months. There's lots of fun things happening. Jackie, you can't make SoCal Moot? Well, you should definitely, if you guys could come to Mythmoot, that would be phenomenal. It would be really wonderful. It would be so cool to have you guys there. Yeah. Anyway, we've been on 3 different continents, Cookie Emperor, for moots so far. It's conceivable. I could imagine doing moots on other continents, but we have no immediate plans expanding to this. Kate's good question. Any update on Kiwi Moot? Yeah. So Kiwi Moot is our big New Zealand moot. We're gonna have it in Wellington. We're totally doing stuff. We've been talking to the Weta people. They're really excited. We're gonna definitely be going over to Weta and stuff. Anyway, we're going to New Zealand. We don't have the definite dates set yet, but we're looking at the beginning of January 2027. So that's not this coming year. That's not this February, but next February. So like 14 months from now. And what we're gonna have a regular. So Osmoot is normally from like 3 days, from Friday, like kind of fun stuff on Thursday night, and then moot on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We're gonna do that regular, because remember, in addition to being a really fun destination moot for folks from elsewhere, this is also like the local regional moot for the Australian New Zealand folks. So we're gonna do like what we normally do. It's not called Osmoot because it's not in Australia, but we're gonna do basically the normal Osmoot stuff, which is so much fun. Like Osmoot is a really, really great moot, as our Australian friends present would be able to tell you. But in addition to that, we're going to we're going to be doing it since this is Kiwi Moot, New Zealand presents. That's the word I'm looking for. Presents many excellent opportunities. We are planning to do a whole we're going all out. Like we're doing a whole bunch of touring. So we're going to have the Moot. We're going to also, the Moot, like the tickets for the Moot will be like sold normally, normal price, all that sort of thing. And then we're going to have extra experiences, probably before and after the Moot. So that we can do tours and we can see things. Like I've never been to New Zealand in my life before. This is my first trip, so I want to see all the things. I want to go to Weta. I want to see all the sites. I want to go and I want to do readings. I want to have discussions, and this is all what I want to do. And I think it's gonna be awesome. What is going to be, people will be able to you can come for it'll be kind of modular, right? Like you'll sign up for the Moot and then you can sign up for, additional add-on like this part or both parts or whatever like that. Anyway, that's, so that's what we're going to do. We will need at some point relatively soon, that is within the next couple months, most likely, we're going to start taking deposits. We don't normally do deposits not even for Mythmoot. We don't do deposits for Moots, but we're going to need deposits for this so that we can have some definite numbers, because we're going to have to be careful. Like there's going to be a cap on how many people we can have, because we're going to be arranging for buses and it's all kinds of logistics that are going to go into Kiwi Moot and the extra stuff that we're going to do. So we'll need to take deposits and have people definitely so that we can make reservations and all of this stuff. It's a complicated kind of chicken and egg thing to try to plan, right? Because on the one hand, we can't make reservations till we know how many people we have, and we can't know how many people we have until we have reservations and can tell you what we're doing on what dates, right? So we're trying to kind of figure all that stuff out. Anyway, so that's not a very concrete update on Kiwi Moot, but I definitely wanted to remind you guys about that and as soon as we're ready to do deposits and stuff, I think basically once we get the venue nailed down, for the event itself, the Moot itself, so that we have this is definitely the weekend, and then we can start planning stuff on either side. Once we have very definite dates that we can give you, that's when we'll start taking deposits and to be clear about that stuff. So anyway, so lots of fun Moot things happening. We're doing all kinds of things this coming year. 2026 is also going to be the year we finally get up north in America. We're doing a Moot in Michigan for the first time. We're doing a Detroit Moot, Motown Moot, and we may even we're hoping even to do a Helcaraxa Moot in Alaska this coming year in 2026. Oh yeah, Alaska. It's gonna be fun. I don't know how many people will be able to make it, but it's gonna be awesome. We're gonna schedule that. We're looking at August for the Alaska Moot for sure. So we'll see. No, I don't think, Scott, we're going to burn any boats. I think that's distinctly going to be discouraged. But yeah, there we are. Anyway, okay. Anyway, but enough Moot chatter and things. All right, let us let's get to our exciting text. Okay. All right. Excellent. Very good. Okay. Off we go. Here we are. Legolas turned and set an arrow to the string, though it was a long shot for his small bow. He drew, but his hand fell, and the arrow slipped to the ground. He gave a cry of dismay and fear. 2 great trolls appeared. They bore great slabs of stone and flung them down to serve as gangways over the fire. But it was not the trolls that had filled the elf with terror. The ranks of the orcs had opened, and they crowded away as if they themselves were afraid. Something was coming up behind them. What it was could not be seen. It was like a great shadow, in the middle of which was a dark form, of man-shape maybe, yet greater, and a power and terror seemed to be in it and to go before it. It came to the edge of the fire, and the light faded, as if a cloud had bent over it. Then, with a rush, it leaped across the fissure. The flames roared up to greet it, and wreathed about it, and a black smoke swirled in the air. Its streaming mane kindled and blazed behind it. In its right hand was a blade like a stabbing tongue of fire. In its left it held a whip of many thongs. "Aye, aye!" wailed Legolas. "A Balrog! A Balrog is come!" Gimli stared with wide eyes. "Durin's Bane!" he cried, and letting his axe fall, he covered his face. "A Balrog," muttered Gandalf. "Now I understand." He faltered and leaned heavily on his staff. "What an evil fortune, and I am already weary." Okay. There is so much to talk about here. I don't even know where to start. So let's start at the beginning. This often happens, like as I'm reading through, you guys like start peppering with questions, especially about like the latter parts that I'm reading, and then I'm like, okay, now let's not talk about all that. I know, it's hard. Let's start at the beginning, because there's too much. So let's begin at the beginning. First, I love the build-up. Don't you love the build-up? The way that he does the reveal. Tolkien is so good at monster reveals, right? This is such a classic example here. Legolas turned and set an arrow to the string, though it was a long shot for his small bow. Remember, Legolas is turning back just to shoot at the orcs. We were just looking at the arrows that are landing among them, right? So Legolas is just going to turn and shoot back to try to discourage the orcs who are shooting at them, right? This, by the way, I take this as an impulse on Legolas's side. Remember, Gandalf has just in the paragraph before has just started pushing them across, right? For Gimli to go first, and then Merry and Pippin, right? He was just laying this out. So Legolas turning and setting an arrow to the string, I take as he's basically being like a long distance rear guard, essentially, right? He's not standing there and sacrificing himself to defend the bridgehead, but he's clearly going to like, well, since we have to go over single file, I will go towards the end, and in the meanwhile, I'm going to take a couple shots, at the orcs. That seems to be his plan. So I just want to get, Legolas doesn't do all that much, so I wanted to give Legolas credit for what he appears to be setting himself up to do here. Right, exactly. He might force the orcs to seek cover. Exactly. But the warning that we get that something happens. Notice we've got no other cues yet. We know the orcs are coming. Even when we were kind of looking back over their shoulders as they were running, we're seeing the fire, the shadows, the orcs. That's all that we saw. The only hint of something approaching has been the drums. Doom, doom, right? And so suddenly, in the middle of this, he drew, but his hand fell, and the arrow slipped to the ground. Somebody was saying that they love the word slipped there. And yes, Fourth Dauntless, I agree. We think about how many times Legolas has done this motion, right? The knocking of the arrow and the drawing of his bow and firing. And if you've seen really good archers fire their bows. Fire their bows. They don't fire bows. There's no fire involved. When they knock and draw and shoot their bows, it's very fluid and it's very quick. Right? For him to be interrupted in the middle of that, for him to interrupt himself, Fourth Dauntless, as you say, for him to be so shocked that he drops his arrow after he's drawn it. Right? I mean, that's it's not even like he fumbled it or whatever. Like it is knocked, it is drawn, and then it just falls. Right? That's pretty remarkable. Right. And so that is the signal to us that something very serious is he was expecting to shoot at potentially hundreds of orcs. So it's not the appearance of orcs. And then even again, I love the tease. We have this startling moment of the arrow just slipping to the ground, not fumbling again, but it just as if his hands have just gone slack in the midst of drawing his bow. And he gave a cry of dismay and fear. 2 great trolls appeared. Makes it sound like that's what scared him, right? 2 great trolls appeared. They bore great slabs of stone and flung them down to serve as gangways over the fire. But it was not the trolls that had filled the elf with terror. And to notice also what he implies in that sentence. It's not the trolls that terrified Legolas. It's not even the gangways that terrified Legolas, because the gangways, of course, are going to enable the orcs to cross the fissure, and so they're going to be on them in a moment, right? That's, they had, Boromir was laughing not because they were perfectly safe, but because the enemy was thwarted, right? Here's the enemy becoming unthwarted, right? And yet none of that is, we're still told nothing about what is scaring him. Not even a hint. It's only negative information that we're getting. We get Legolas's reaction, and then we get negative information. It is not the trolls that had filled the elf with terror. And then notice it's not even after that the ranks of the orcs had opened and they crowded away as if they themselves were afraid. So there is something else, capital S, capital E, right? And the orcs are afraid of it. And their fear, the fact that you're looking back and like hundreds of orcs wanting to kill you is a little scary. Like that's what killed the dwarves, right? That's what killed Bowen's company. But it's not that. It's not even the trolls. It is something else. So the way in which he just gets us to imagine something like what we are conjuring in our minds is like an infinitely scary thing. Miss Ray, exactly. The unexpected other. And of course, we also probably will remember the passage from Gandalf's description, right? Gandalf told us that the orcs whose voices he heard through the room, it sounded like they themselves were afraid, right? So that's a link back. So that doesn't tell us what it is. But without knowing what it is, receiving the first piece of direct, description of the creature itself, the first thing, apart from Legolas's reaction, and then first we get Legolas's reaction, then we get the orc's reaction, then we get that reference back, that memory, that recollection of Gandalf's experience. So we know whatever this thing is that's coming, that has so terrified Legolas that he has gone numb in the middle of shooting his bow, that has and made him cry out verbally, that has so scared the orcs that just as the gangways have been laid down, instead of rushing forward, they are cowering back, crowding away in fear. Um, at the same time, then our third reaction. So we get the Legolas's reaction, we get the orc's reaction, and then the third thing we get is the memory. This is Gandalf's opponent. And we're remembering the counterspell is terrible. We're getting the right, like we don't. Gandalf didn't know what it was that he was facing, but it was something that went toe to toe with Gandalf and almost destroyed him. And we get that hint of a confirmation. If we recall Gandalf's reference to the orcs in the Chamber of Mizarble being afraid, we get that reference that helps us to know before we're told anything else. This is Gandalf's opponent now finally coming into view. And then the final teasing. No, he doesn't even stop teasing. Then the next teasing sentence. Something was coming up behind them. Oh man, it is so ominous. Something is coming. And then still, what it was could not be seen. It was like a great shadow, in the middle of which was a dark form, of man shape, maybe, yet greater, and a power and terror seemed to be in it and to go before it. That last, so what are the elements? So this is the description that we're given here. Our first description of the Balrog. Stun Duck, I see what you mean. Stun Duck says it's very biblical in style, that line. Yes, one of the things that I would say here is we've been looking at the sort of register of the characters, right? Like when Gandalf is speaking Hobbit and when, people are speaking in hero speak, right? The narrator modulates also. And I think that you are correct in noting that this is a different register here. We can hear a difference. It would be interesting to see if we can begin to see some patterns and kind of point to general trends in the narrator's own diction. But that is really high diction. That last sentence. Just look at that final sentence. What it was could not be seen, : it was like a great shadow, in the middle of which was a dark form, of man shape maybe, yet greater, : and a power and terror seemed to be in it and to go before it. You feel the momentum of that last independent clause after the semicolon? Notice what he's doing there is this sentence is so interesting. It begins, so vocabulary. Remember I've talked about hypotactic syntax and paratactic syntax. Hypotactic syntax is when you're doing like compound complex sentences, lots of subordinate clauses and things, the kind of thing you would expect to find in a logical argument, right? With again lots of like dependent clauses and stuff like that. Paratactic syntax is a whole bunch of simple independent clauses linked together with the word and. This sentence does both. It begins as a hypotactic sentence. What it was could not be seen. It was like a great shadow, in the middle of which was a dark form, of man shape maybe, yet greater. That's a compound complex hypotactic sentence. But then we have the semicolon, and he transitions from there straight into a totally paratactic rhythm, and a power and terror seem to be in it and to go before it. The initial and, power and terror are compound, subjects there of seemed, right? But the first and then and to go before, seemed to be in it and to go before, like that is Yeah, the whole momentum of it by doing a semicolon and then starting the next part with the um, and a power and terror seem to be in it and to go before it. Do you feel how it speeds up there? Again, listen to the momentum of the syntax. What it was could not be seen. It was like a great shadow, in the middle of which was a dark form, of man shape maybe, yet later, and a power and terror seemed to be in it and to go before it. Do you hear that? The first half of the sentence is like halting, doubling back on itself. It's like, well, what's going on? It's kind of like, but I'm not sure. And then the end of the sentence is like, comes over you. Right? Like, is irresistible, and a power and terror seem to be in it and to go before it. I don't know what it is. I can't, I'm looking at it, but I can't even tell what it is. But I feel it, right? One thing I know for sure is that I am terrified right now, right? It's really cool. Like, that is, I love how he handles that. Yes, Little Johnny, it makes you feel like you're leaning forward as you read. Yes, absolutely. Yes. And Shadowfax, I agree. For the sake of discussion and for the sake of visual artists and things like that, there are lots of reasons why people would quite wish for a more detailed visual description of what you actually see when you see the Balrog. But it is scarier the way that he does it here, right? It is definitely scarier. I would, so the things, a couple of you are talking about, again, sort of biblical diction. There is a similarity. The reason you're calling it biblical is because you're thinking of the King James. So what you're thinking of is King James diction, which means not only the diction of 1611, but the diction of people in 1611 who were writing grand style, like the grand style of 1611, right? But what I would suggest, and you're not wrong. There are definitely similarities to that kind of diction. But in some ways I find that comparison misleading in some ways. That is, okay, that's not exactly right. Where I find it misleading, I don't like to use that word to talk about it. And here's why. The reason is when I start talking about Tolkien is speaking biblically here, then people think I'm talking about biblical references or that there's some kind of spiritual theme. And it's not that there aren't any spiritual themes going on here, but you see what I mean? I try to differentiate between Tolkien is referring to the Bible here and Tolkien is using a particular diction, which does happen to be similar to one particular version of the Bible, right? But anyway, yes, Adam, that is exactly what I would say. Instead of calling it biblical, I would call it mythic. That's exactly what I would say. When his descriptions become mythic. And several people also before were talking about the how similar it is to the Silmarillion diction. Yes, because that's mythology, right? That's mythography, Tolkien writing myth. So yes. It's not that he's doing the Silmarillion. It's that in these moments he's doing the same thing that he did in the Silmarillion, which is not normally what he's doing. Normally he's doing heroic romance. In these moments, he's doing myth and mythography. And yes, Garth Galerius, I do think that when Tolkien goes mythic, when Tolkien's narrator goes mythic, it does have a similar kind of gravitas. The feel which is another thing that makes people think of the Bible, right? Because it doesn't even just sound archaic. It doesn't even, surprisingly few people to me actually compare it to Shakespeare. Though you could compare it to Shakespeare. I mean, Shakespeare and the King James, they're not. I think there are certain differences between the, like, focus and word choice of Shakespeare and the King James translation, but slightly different spirit. However, linguistically, there's not a huge there's not a huge gap between them. But people don't make that comparison. People are more likely to compare it to the Bible, to the King James, than they are to compare it to Shakespeare. And I think, Garth Goarius, it's the gravitas, right? Because like Shakespeare is witty and making puns and it's often light and even flippant. And when Tolkien goes into that kind of archaic mode, it's not the times when he is, he's not being anything like as, playful. Shakespeare is almost always playful, even in his tragic moments. He's often playful. Tolkien's playful too, but not when he's being mythic, right? Those two things are not real compatible. Yeah. Oh, Shakespeare has more sex jokes than the King James. Not because there are none in the King James, but because Shakespeare can't help himself. Shakespeare can barely go a scene without a dirty joke. Yeah, that's a hands down right there. Yeah. Yeah. And yes, Forthall has agreed. The sex in the King James is disturbing rather than funny. Almost always. That is correct. Yes. Anyway, yes, we do in fact digress. Let's get back to mythic mode here. That is what I want to call when the narrator goes into its highest register. The narrator's highest register. So we've got hero speak for the characters. We've got mythic mode for the narrator. What I'm going to be interested to see, I think my gut says there are 3 registers, at minimum 3 distinct registers for the narrator. There's mythic mode, there's like middle mode, and then there's like, I don't know what, casual mode. Like, but let's see how that's kind of bears itself out. Hobbit mode, yeah, maybe. I think that might be fair. I'm a little unwilling to call it that because it's not exactly the same as like Hobbit register for dialogue, but no, Bombadil mode is a whole separate thing for Thunless. Yeah. Bilbo mode, that's interesting. Bilbo mode, that's kind of a special thing too. I mean, like the mode of chapter 1 and mostly chapter 1 and a little bit of chapter 3, like the thinking fox mode, right? Like that's Bilbo mode, which I think is a unique one and kind of limited in its scope, right? Yeah. Anyway, the Bilbo mode is the whimsical mode, like the thinking fox and the comparison to freight trains and stuff like that. Yes. Anyway, okay. But let's get back to what he's saying in mythic mode here. Notice the layers of uncertainty. I just love just as the syntax of that final sentence is halting and doubling back on itself and uncertain, up through the last semicolon. Just as that, okay, it's only one colon, one semicolon, so up to the semicolon. Not only that, but like look at the actual description. So what does he see? What do you see when you look? You see a shadow? Is that what you see? No. It's like a shadow. That's a simile. He's comparing it to a shadow. It was like a shadow, in the middle of which is a dark form. Okay. That is definite. there's a dark form that is like, and around it is like a great shadow. What is something that's like a shadow? Anyway, okay. So there's a dark form. What shape is the form? When we say form, that's pretty vague, Tolkien. What form? Of man shape. Maybe. Yet greater. Of man shape, maybe, yet greater. What does that mean? Yeah, I love the maybe too. Maybe man shape. Vaguely bipedal? Okay, so it's on its back legs, I think. Pretty sure. I feel confident that it's a biped. But greater. Yet greater. That probably means bigger and taller and probably broader. But greater, but that's not even like 100% because it could be greater in a different sense. Most likely in mythic mode, when we're using archaic language, if you said in something like the King James, or if Shakespeare said it was very great, then they meant it was real big, right? So most likely saying that it was greater than a man probably means probably has as its primary meaning that it was bigger than a man. Bigger than man size. Larger. But this is one of the great things about mythic mode. This is one of the fun things about using archaic language, is that when you reach back, not for the word bigger, not for the word larger, but for the older word greater, it comes with other baggage. Right? Because the word great also means other things besides big. It's greater than man shape. Does that mean it's more powerful looking? It could mean that. Right? Kate says greater than man shaped equals Henry Cavill. Yes. So like if I were standing next to Henry Cavill, you could definitely say, well, he is greater than I am. Right? I would make him look great standing next to him, right? But think about that. Like, he looks great. That would be true in more than one sense, right? He is not only handsomer than I, he is also very much greater. In the sense of, like, simply, I think he's taller than I am, and I think he's broader than I am, but he's also more muscular and looking more powerful than I am, right? So again, like, the word great would work in multiple senses. So yes, Garth Galerius, it is perfectly reasonable to suspect that the Balrog may in fact be swole. Yes, I think that is very possible. That would fit the description of man shape maybe yet greater, right? That's one other possible kind of resonance that has. But of course, it's also becomes even more abstract, right? Of greater stature, right? Like just its presence. Yes. Yes. And Eric, of course, one of the things that one tends to look for, what we will notice about mythic mode is that mythic mode, when Tolkien's narrator modulates to mythic mode, we will find fewer Latinate words. Greater is an Anglo-Saxon word, right? That is not a Latin word. So yeah, that is definitely a trend. No French words. Not saying he'll never use them. There will be others that will sometimes pass through French on their way to but yeah, there's he will tend to be more rigorous in his word that has been in the English language since before 1600, words that will tend to come more from Old English than from Romance languages. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. One last thing before we move on to the next paragraph. No, actually, not quite ready to the paragraph yet. Never mind. Remind me about the one more thing. I'm not finished with this sentence yet. Again, as we were seeing in the syntax, the first part of the sentence is uncertain, doubling back on itself, complicated. Oh, and you were asking before, somebody was asking before, does man shape mean only bipedal? No, I'm just trying to say what I feel confident in saying of man shape maybe means, right? I feel confident that he's not a quadruped, or else he wouldn't say of man shape. Like a quadruped would definitely not be of man shape. I'm not really sure what else of man shape maybe tells us. Like humanoid body plan, head, 2 arms, 2 legs. That's not a given, by the way. There are lots of like godly demonic creatures that might have like 4 or 6 arms or something like that. So like, you know, like Tash from Lewis, from Narnia. Wings, for instance, indeed, yes. So yeah, like Fourth Dauntless, I think it's possible, even likely. I would call it likely that of man shape maybe means that proportionally similar to, like, probably, like, so I feel very sure he's a biped. I feel like 75% sure that he's only got 2 arms and 2 legs. I feel 40% confident that his arms don't stretch down past his knees. 40%, maybe 50. But we're starting to get into what I feel like. There's a head. Yeah. Head at the top. Yep. Head at the top. Yeah. So, but again, like of man shape, maybe like, I don't feel much more confident going beyond those things. Right. Of man shape, maybe yet greater, could indicate, I mean, like we talked about him being swole, he could be grotesquely swole, right? I mean, like he could be muscular, or not even muscular. He could be bony in weird ways that like, I mean, if I saw something that like had, you know, I don't know what, like spiny ridges or something, I don't know, like I'm guessing here, right? Enormous claws, but yet had like the right number of, you know, a humanoid number of arms and legs that were in more or less the same proportion and stuff, and all in more or less the place I'd expect to see them in a humanoid. I might call that of man shape maybe yet greater, right? Lupita, we get, this is a better description than any we get of the Balrogs in the Silmarillion. Physical description. We get no descriptions of the Balrogs. Almost none. Yeah. Anyway. And Heradio, I totally agree. Maybe might be doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. Yes. Yeah. And it's interesting because you could place a heavy emphasis or a lighter emphasis. I mean, it still leaves a lot to your imagination, right? You could imagine, and I think I've usually read the maybe as primarily kind of rhetorical, right? Of man shape maybe, or you could lean on it much harder and be like, of man shape maybe yet greater, right? You could use it as like the maybe to be like, okay, yeah, like man shape, but don't sit there too long. Like, let me emphasize the greater. The maybe could do that work. Or it could just be a kind of transition, right? That just kind of gently prepares you. Right? Yeah, you could emphasize of man's shape, maybe. Right? Now, that one is harder because it's hyphenated, right? Man shape is clearly one idea through the hyphenation. But yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Okay. But notice the difference between that first half of the sentence and the second half of the sentence. What is certain? All we've been told for sure is that it's a dark form that may have some similarities with the general body plan of humanoids, but is greater in one or more senses than they. That is not much information, and is surrounded by something that is like shadow. But what is certain about this thing? What do we know for sure? It's power and terror, Fourth Dauntless. That's exactly it. A power and a terror seem to be in it and to go before it. And a power and terror seem to be in it and to go before it. I love the idea. Like the terror going before it is so cool. Both of these things are so cool. Because when you talk about terror, you're normally talking about the viewer, right? Legolas was described as experiencing his cry as a cry of fear and dismay. Legolas appears to be terrified, right? But the terror in question is not their terror. We're not being told that the viewers are experiencing terror. He says that, and so there are four terms here, right? There's two subjects, power and terror, and they perform two actions, right? And I want to consider all four of those things separately for a second. Let's start with it. We're starting with terror. The terror in question is terror that is in it. It has terror. It contains terror. It has a personal resource of terror. Right? This thing is not something just that might make you feel afraid. This thing is in the terror distribution business. Right? It has terror and is prepared to share. In fact, not only is it prepared to share the terror that is within it, it is that the terror goes before it. So like its terror, it is bowling its terror down the hallway towards you, right? Like a herald. Yes. And I loved your Greek thing. I was going to take a shot at pronouncing your Greek word there, Johnny, but I it was too many syllables for me to gamble right away. Power and terror seem to be in it and to go before it. So again, like, are they experiencing terror? Oh yes, they're experiencing terror. But the terror that they are experiencing, the sense of the terror is that the terror is outside them. The terror is in the thing. And the thing is sending the terror out to them. The terror is hitting them from the outside. That is the experience of the terror. And yes, you can almost picture it, Miss Ray, rolling out like a dust cloud. Yes. After all, the terror is physical. What just happened? The orcs crowd away. Like you can see the terror pushing the orcs away. Right? The terror has already literally parted the orcs, and now the terror is rolling towards them down the hallway. Yeah. Yeah. That's 2 of our 4 terms. Let's do the other 2. Power. Power seemed to be in it. This is different from just saying, well, that looks powerful, right? Power seemed to be in it. Power is a thing that it has. The thing that's most scary about these descriptions, about the power and the terror, is that it separates both of them, not only from each other, but from it. Okay, these aren't just descriptions. It's not just terrifying and powerful. It has power and terror. The power is something that it can wield. And it is wielding it, because the power is going before it as well. They can feel it. You can feel the power rolling off of this thing. Yes, Dark Satanic Biscuit Factory. It is like that description of Glorfindel, strength in his hand and wisdom on his brow. That's totally mythic mode as well, by the way. Those descriptions of Elrond and Gandalf and Glorfindel at the feast, Frodo's feast, in Rivendell, totally mythic mode. Classic example of the narrator in mythic mode. Yeah, Miss Ray, we talked about that at Ranger Moot, right? In our little Lord of the Rings randomized game by the fire pit. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Trifle says it's reminding her of the Akalabeth describing Sauron's form post-Numenor as hatred and malice made visible. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Agreed. And yes, Gildalwyn, thank you. Thank you. It's not power and terror seem to be in it. There's the indefinite article. A power seemed to be in it. A power seemed to be in it. And to go before it. Yeah, Eric, I agree. I think it makes it feel more tangible. Specific but unspecified. Jackie, yes. Again, power, like, if you just say power, like he has power to do what? What kind of power? But if you say he has a power, or rather, like, imagine what you would think if someone was introducing you to people at a party, right? And they pointed to a person over there and they're like, a power is in her. You'd be like, maybe I'm not going to go meet that person, right? I mean, it's, it would be seriously off-putting. It would be seriously off-putting, right? Whereas if somebody said she's really powerful, like, that'd be a little bit weird, but, like, you know, you can understand that in lots of different ways. And yes, Fourth Dauntless, I agree. In Tolkien's vocabulary, the broader vocabulary, a power also recalls the Valar. The powers. Yes. 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 Now they're the powers, right? But I suspect that one of the things Tolkien is trying to evoke here in talking about a power seemed to be in it, he's trying to evoke this sense they are in the presence of an incarnate, like that, or not an incarnate, but in physical form. But this is a powerful spiritual being. This is not just a monster. Not even Smaug is like this. At the end of the day, Smaug is a worm, right? You know, or I'm a lizard, says Smaug, right? Well, he's not just a lizard. And he has an overwhelming personality. He's a large lizard with an overwhelming personality, but they didn't say a power is in him, right? Yeah. Exactly, Dr. Benway. A sense of an otherworldly being. I think that's one of the things Tolkien is trying to invoke here. But note, in saying a power seemed to be in it is not like a power can't just be equated with a spirit of the Maiar, right? Because the power also, like the terror, is going before it. And I don't think that like it's spiritual. I don't think it's Fea is like progressing across the hall while its Hroa is still behind the fissure, right? Like that's, it's so it doesn't mean that literally. It doesn't mean that simply. But I do think that that's one of the things that it's invoking. They could like this thing. Have you ever been like really close to like, you know, high tension wires or like like a big old electric like distribution where you can feel the hum, right? The buzzing of the air, right? Faint smell of ozone, right? There's a sense in which I think when he says a power seemed to be in it, it's that kind of sense, right? The air is humming around this thing. Remember, Gandalf could feel it come into the room in the Chamber of Mizarbo. He knew when it wasn't just that he felt it exerting its will against the door. He felt it coming. He felt it enter the room. And he could tell the orcs were afraid. The power and terror came in to the Chamber of Mizarbo, and Gandalf was aware of both right away before it was aware of him, right? Yes, Obi-Wan Kenobi would surely have called it a disturbance in the Force, but yeah. Yep. Aura. Nerdosapiens, yes. I on the one hand, I kind of like the way that aura is used now in modern slang. That is to say, I like what that slang is trying to capture. I think it's trying to capture something and communicate something interesting and kind of abstract and complex. But so I appreciate the attempt to capture that thing. I don't love the use of the word aura for it because it's already making the word aura was a useful word because what the word aura means is like it's talking about like something that affects the area around it, right? Not even something that's about it precisely, but anyway, yeah. Anyhow, a power seemed to be in it and to go before it. They can feel its power. An alien power. I think, again, that's another thing, a sense of the indefinite article there. An alien, a threatening power. And that power also is like reaching out towards them as it approaches. And that is scary. Now I'll go back to my last thing. Did you notice what we learned about Legolas in this paragraph? I don't mean what we're going to learn about Legolas in two paragraphs from now. I mean what we learned about Legolas in the first paragraph. Legolas not only saw, but identified it before anybody else could see anything. If the description is being told from the Hobbit standpoint, we don't yet know that he knows for sure what it is. Necessarily. He hasn't said anything yet. All we've heard is him to give a cry of dismay and fear, right? But the progression, that reveal, the thing that triggers the very scary gradual reveal of the Balrog is that Legolas sees it first. Or possibly senses it first. Again, his familiarity and knowledge, we don't know that yet. Forget that. We've not gotten there yet. We're not on that paragraph. We're only on the first paragraph. But what we can see is that they, before anybody else even sees the maybe man shape, shadow-like power and terror thing, before that happens, before the two great trolls appear. The two great trolls appear after Legolas gives a cry of dismay and fear. But it's not the trolls that filled the elf with terror. So one of two things is happening. One is, or both. One is that Legolas is aware of it before the hobbits are. Because I think the gradual reveal may well be, like, they see Legolas's reaction, right? So our hobbit point of view, our Frodo point of view, which was very explicitly Frodo point of view in the last paragraph. Our Frodo point of view sees Legolas. Legolas is dismayed and afraid of something. What could it be? There are two great trolls. Maybe it's no, it doesn't seem to be the trolls. They're throwing down slabs of stone as gangways. No, there's something else. The ranks of the trolls had opened. That's already happened. So like as the trolls come forward and they're laying down he knows it's not the trolls because he already sees the orcs moving aside. You can tell this from the tense of the verb. The ranks of the orcs had opened and they crowded away. By the way, I think that this is so much better. There's a lot that I really like about the film version of the Balrog interaction. There's much to be appreciated about it. I don't like how they did the orcs being afraid. This is so much better. The orcs just in this raging crowd and then them just parting and him coming through them is so much better than them coming in and then them running away. Right. Yeah. So, anyway, Legolas sees it first. So Legolas can either see much further than them, which we know to be true, or later on we will learn for certain is true, but we don't have much reason. I don't think we have any evidence on that yet at this point in the story. So this is an interesting little thing to note. Or he is more sensitive. He perceives its power and terror sooner than they do. So before they're doing any dismay, before they have any more than secondhand dismay, he's aware. Has he identified it? Possibly. I actually doubt it myself. I think when he gives a cry of dismay and fear, I don't think that Legolas has recognized it yet. I think he recognizes it when he says it. He doesn't say a Balrog is come when he drops when his arrow slips to the ground. He just cries out in dismay and fear. So yeah, I think he's experiencing the terror. I think perhaps his greatly increased elvish, fear antenna, whatever his sense of power and fear antenna, or whether it's his sight, I don't know. But, yeah. Anyway, it's also possible, of course. One of the other things that I like about this, another way of reading this, or again, both might be true. So one thing that we might be seeing there about the distinction between Legolas's reaction and the later reaction of the Frodo point of view narrator. One reading of that is that Legolas is seeing and picking it up faster. The second reading of that is Legolas is seeing it and experiencing it at the same time as everybody else. The narrator is delaying, not to tease us, because he's procrastinating. The narrator does not want to describe what is coming. Like, this paragraph would show us Frodo as narrator dragging his feet, building up to, actually describing the Balrog coming. Like, he does not want to relive this. So he's like, well, let's talk about the trolls. And meanwhile, the trolls were doing this other thing. But then he has to come clean. But it wasn't the trolls. that filled the elf with terror. Okay, orcs. Let me talk about the orcs. The ranks of the orcs had opened and they crowded away. Okay, I can't avoid it anymore. Maybe I can. Something was coming up behind him. Do you see what I mean? Like there's a kind of procrastination there. There's a kind of dread, as if the narrator himself is afraid, as if the narrator himself dreads what is coming so much that he doesn't want to describe it, right? Yeah, Miss Ray, you're right. The Legolas falters, Gandalf falters, the narrator falters. Yes. Yeah. Yep. Okay, now, paragraph 2. It came to the edge of the fire, and the light faded as if a cloud had bent over it. Notice a simile again. What light are we talking about? The fierce red light. Remember the fierce red light coming out of the fissure? The fierce red light faded. Faded how? So it went down? Like it just decreased? Like somebody turned down the dimmer switch on the fissure? No, not like that. As if a cloud had bent over it. So, now what does that mean? Had bent over it. I'm not sure what this means. Sorry, what I'm trying to understand is the actual metaphor. Because I can see he's saying that light is fading, and he's comparing that to what a cloud does to light to make it fade. One possibility, Little Room Johnny, is that it's like when a cloud passes in front of the sun. That's one. Another possibility is when you're looking at a cloud, like not when it's come between you and the sun and it's suddenly dark around you, but when you're like seeing the shadow under a cloud. Now, clouds bending. No, I don't think so. June flowers. I don't think we're supposed to be thinking about bending like a rainbow. I think, Tolkien, yes, stoop. I was just going to use the word stoop, Jackie. That's exactly it. Clouds do they bend and they also stoop. That sense of a cloud bending, like when a cloud is bending over you, the bending, this is a metaphor inside a simile. That's why this is complicated. The word bent over it, had bent over it. He's using a metaphor to characterize the cloud. And the cloud is in a simile to talk about the fading of the light, right? So let's parse the metaphor first. Imagine somebody much taller than you. So imagine being a child, right? And an adult is bending over you. Or imagine sitting down on the ground and somebody is bending over you. So like that person's body is looming up above you. The sky above you is covered, but you can fit, they're close to you, right? It's not like something that's way up there. It's like right above your head, and it's looming right above you, and it's stooping down towards you, cutting you off. Yes, towering over you, casting a shadow. But towering doesn't get that claustrophobic sense that Kate's talking about. That's exactly right. So the bending over you, like when something bends over something, like, and so Tolkien does, and he uses that metaphor. I can't place it right now. But I was thinking of stoop, Jackie, because I know I feel sure Tolkien uses that metaphor, stooping, to describe clouds elsewhere. Um, uh, but anyway, yeah. So the sense. So if you say this is a cloud bending over, like a cloud is bending over you, then that metaphor conveys there is presumably a dark cloud, and it is low to the ground. It feels very near to you, not like a little puffy cloud way up high in the sky, right? But a low-lying cloud which is coming right over top of you and looming over you like you might loom over a child, or like if you're imagining sitting on the ground, you know, curled up on the ground and somebody is stooping over you right above. That's the metaphor. What he's telling us, that's what the metaphor is telling us about the cloud, the kind of cloud that it is. Now, the cloud simile is trying to help us understand what is happening to the light, to the fierce red light in the fissure. And this is where it would seem straightforward. Darkened like the daylight is darkened when a cloud stoops over you seems to be the thing. Yes. Okay, that's where it was. Gandalf stoops like a cloud. Yes. That's what I was remembering in Journey in the Dark, when he lifts the burning branch and strides to meet the wolves. Yes. Yes. Gandalf stooping like a cloud. That was it. That was it. Yep. Yep. Jackie must be looking it up. Wow, Tolkien loves the word stoop. Yep. Yep. It's a fun word. Yep, that's it. That's exactly the one I was thinking of, because it's recent enough it was still in the back of my head. The cloud and stooping thing. That metaphor is exactly the same. Gandalf bending over to pick up a stick was like a cloud stooping. Something huge and threatening and massive drawing close over your head. That's what Gandalf bending over to pick up a stick was like in that moment. Yes. Yes. Anyway, so that's the kind of cloud. The bending over, it's like it's a stooping cloud. That's exactly the kind of thing. Yeah. We just had Frodo stooping and stabbing with Sting at the hideous foot. Yeah. Yeah. There you go. Frodo stooped also. By the way, that description of Gandalf, totally mythic mode. Totally mythic mode. Hardcore mythic mode. The description of Gandalf striding forth to meet the wolves. Right? Yeah. Yeah. Classic example of mythic mode. Okay. Yes, it is a similar idea to lowering clouds. Yes. About 80% of the modern population has forgotten how to pronounce the word lowering with respect to clouds. It's not lowering, it's lowering. I always laugh, like easily 50% of audiobook readers read that word wrong if it comes up. It doesn't usually come up, but if it does, they almost always read it wrong. I always find that funny. But yeah, that's lowering is that word. It's a different word. It doesn't mean, they're kind of getting lower, but that's almost a coincidence. That's not what it's. Yes, the word lowering, it's like the word glowering. It's describing their affect. It's not just describing their altitude. Yeah, it's a different word. Anyway, yeah. Yes, to lower, to frown or look sullen or gloomy. It is attributing like an expression. Yeah, like an attitude. Glowering is what you do with your eyes when you have a lowering expression. Yeah, exactly. Um, uh, it's just archaic. It's just archaic. Yeah, personally, I think that the spelling that word WLOWERING does not do anybody any favors. I think we should go back to spelling it LOUR, lowering. That would be much clearer. Anyhow, okay. Yeah. Sorry. Now you will all notice when people mispronounce that word. Okay. But, okay, back to the cloud. So, again, so here's my problem. The cloud simile, on the one hand, seems like a straightforward way of saying the light was dimmed. Just like when a cloud passes over the sun and the light is dimmer. But the light is coming from below. As if a cloud had bent over it. So, like, not as if a cloud is bent over in order to come between the sun and you, but if the cloud had bent over the light, what would that look like? So, if a cloud had bent over, had, stooped over the fissure, so is it dimmed in this? Is it faded? The light faded in the sense of now we're seeing it coming through the cloud? Like on the other side? Yes, Gildolowin has the correct lowering emoji. That's lowering. Yeah. I think the red version, so it's the like frowny face with like the sharply down eyebrows. Yeah, I think the red version is a little angrier. Lowering isn't like I'm in a rage. It's just like lowering is that look that like when you walked in the door and your mom was looking at you like that, you knew you were in trouble. Like she's not yelling or throwing things at you, but like you're in for it. Like that's lowering. Yeah. So okay. So again, it's the relative position of the viewers and the light. From where they're standing, they see the light. It's the shadow is coming. Notice this happens before it jumps. And what does this come right after? A power and terror seem to be in it and to go before it. It came to the edge of the fire. What came? The thing? The something? Or was it just the power and terror? Did the power get to the edge of the fire? And that's what makes the light fade? Is that what he means? We didn't even talk about this that much. What does he mean when he says it was like a shadow? Well, is it a shadow or not? That's a weird metaphor. I mean, how do you say, it was like darkness? Well, what did it have in common with darkness exactly? Was it the whole lack of light thing? Because if it had lack of light in common with darkness, then it's darkness. Right? Like darkness, it's a weird metaphor. It is like unlight. I want to be cautious about unlight because unlight is a different thing. Unlight is okay, let's not go too far down this road. What unlight is more than just lack of light. It is a positive darkness. But by saying it was like a shadow, though, he's not saying it's more than just darkness, more than just absence of light. In some sense, he's saying it's less. It was similar to a shadow, but not exactly a shadow. Yeah, spiritual darkness. Spiritual darkness that you can see. So yeah, Tim Wantley, I agree. It's like spiritual. Maybe it's only like a great shadow in the sense that there's nothing throwing it. Like if you saw a big shadow, you would think that it was because like it's a great shadow that has nothing to do with the relative position of like a physical body and a light source, essentially. In that way, perhaps, It is like a shadow, but it isn't a shadow. He doesn't actually say it's like darkness. He says it's like a shadow. So it is like a great shadow thrown against the wall, except it does not obey the optical laws that govern the relative relationship between physical objects and light sources and shadows, right? And yes, first fish, it might well be not on the wall, right? It's like a great shadow, except not on the wall. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, it's in the air. Yeah, somehow. Yeah. It does not seem to be merely a byproduct of the fierce red light in the fissure. And now we can feel confident it's not, because that shadow, the light is fading as if a cloud had bent over it. The shadow is moving over the light source. Shadows don't do that. Ever. Right? It's as if a cloud had bent over it. The light is dimmed in that spot. But the light isn't, it's not like the light is dimmed in the whole room. Just there. Then with a rush, it leaped across the fissure. Probably the creature and not its power and terror. But I love the fact that we're still just using that pronoun, it. What is the antecedent of it, grammatically speaking? Something? Maybe? Because we did get it was like a great shadow. But, yeah. Something? Yeah. The antecedent is like a pronoun. Tom. Yeah. Yeah. Something like that. Yeah. We've had nothing. All we got was something and then a whole series of its. What it was. It was like. Seemed to be in it and to go before it. It came to the edge of the fire. Then with a rush, it leaped across the fissure. It's still just the something. Dark form, no, sort of. The something is like a great shadow, in the middle of which was a dark form. Is the dark form, it's, yeah, like... whatever they're experiencing is the it. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think like the shadow, the dark form, which might be of man shape, but greater in some dimensions, maybe multiple dimensions. That's the something. That's the something. Yes. Then with a rush, it leaped across the fissure. And I also love gangways were just thrown down, right? But this thing, it disdains the gangways, right? It just leaps across the fissure. The fierceness of the fierce red light has faded. Not even dimmed. That's not the word it uses. Faded. And then it, the creature, leaps across the fissure. The flames roared up to greet it and wreathed about it. And a black smoke swirled in the air. Its streaming mane kindled. It has a mane. There you go. That is one detail we now have. It has a vaguely humanoid body plan. It's big, and it has a mane. What kind of mane? Horse's mane? Lion's mane? Don't know. But it has a mane. And its mane is streaming as it leaps. Streaming mane. Its streaming mane kindled and blazed behind it. It catches fire. And Trifle, I love greeted. Greet. The flames roared up to greet it. Yeah. Flames definitely produce sound, Yoga Lady. Hey, welcome Darnock the Mage on YouTube. You should join us on the Signum Twitch channel if you can. There's an Exploring the Lord of the Rings channel on the Signum University Discord server. But anyway, yeah. Yes, and this, of course, is why Bakshi depicted it like with a lion's head, the Balrog. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay, so before we get to the main, I wanted to do that whole thing with the fire because it's all part of the fire thing. But the flames roared up to greet it. If you've ever heard a fire really take off, like when a fire catches a bunch of really excellent fuel with really good ventilation, right? And it just whooshes. It roars. It definitely roars. Yeah. Yes, as Fourth Dauntless says, forest fires sound like a freight train. Yes, forest fires are loud. Not just the crackling and the falling of things, but the flames themselves are loud. Yes, that's a wonderful example. I always, every year, we still get a live Christmas tree every year. And a fun annual tradition is the burning of the Christmas tree in the backyard, round about, usually a little bit after Epiphany. When it's nice and dried out. Sometimes I leave it outside for like a few more weeks to let it thoroughly dry out. And then my sons and I will just go out and like match light the Christmas tree, and boom, oh my goodness, the roar. Yes, David Kaplan. I know folks in Southern California know how fire sounds. Yes, exactly. So the flames roared up to greet it. The flames weren't making... Remember what the flames were doing before? The flames were licking before. They were licking the edges of the fissure and the bottoms of the pillars, right? And then they come... It's like they give voice, even, in greeting to the something. The greeting, this sense of friendship, this sense of kinship between the flames and the something is significant and wreathed about it. There is something loving. There is something familiar. There is also something almost like, when is a creature wreathed? It's like a laurel wreath Like it's like a crown almost, right? I mean, this is like, it's like an exalting sort of thing, right? And we're totally not finishing this whole slide tonight, by the way. Like, we all kind of suspected that these 3 slides might take more than 3 weeks, and I'm not sorry. But yes. So, and I loved that comment. I love the comment earlier. The contrast between the orcs crowding away, right? The orcs crowd away from it, but the flames roar up to greet it and wreathe around it, right? The flames are really, really happy to see it. They greet it gladly. There's a kind of gladness. The combination of greet and wreathed makes me think of glad, almost of celebration. Yeah. Like an adoring crowd. Yes. Like an adoring crowd. Absolutely. And a black smoke swirled in the air. I love the, like, and this thing happened, right? Like, why? It's on the one hand, we get this visual description of the circling motion that the flames are making as they come up around it, and the circular motion of the flames creates a circular motion, a swirling motion in the smoke. But the presence of smoke also serves to, like, prove that this is real fire that has actual smoke. This is not just like a visual effect, right? It's not like light, which is like, this is fire. These are flames with smoke. Yes. Good. Denethor is going to be wreathed in fire also. Yes. We'll come back to that in a few years. And smoke, of wreathed in fire and smoke. Yes. And a breaking staff. Yes. We'll get there. Anyway, the flames do more than greet Denethor, right? Yeah. Its streaming mane kindled and blazed behind it. Look at all of the fire related verbs that we're getting here. Roared, great, wreathed, swirled with the smoke, kindled and blazed. The streaming mane kindled and blazed behind it. Kurthimus wants to know what the mane looked like before. No idea, on account of we didn't know it had one. I also would say, and we do have to stop at some point. Let's stop after this sentence, because I haven't reread the next sentence yet, and we'll wait until we get there. We'll use the last sentence of the second paragraph as a way to finish up this paragraph and transition into the dialogue next week. But I did want to mention that I too noticed when I was reading it through the first time, the first paragraph, I did not get much, not none, but it was not really striking me. The alliteration in the first paragraph wasn't really striking me. In the second paragraph, yes. Fire, faded, fissure, flames, and then blazed behind blade. Yes. Yes. There were a bunch of S's also. Smoke swirled, streaming, stabbing, as well as rush across, especially across the fissure as well. Yeah. 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 Okay. Dark Satanic Biscuit Factory has to go. Your trolls have arrived home from school, have they? Well, that's good. I hope that something is not coming up behind them, even more dreadful than they. But anyway, yeah. So the F's and S's, I seem to kind of create the fiery kind of soundscape there. I think the B's are anticipatory, right? Black smoke blazed behind blade is preparation for Balrog, I think. Yeah, good. Gildoliban is noticing it's not just B's, it's BL's. Black blazed blade Balrog, right? Yeah, yeah. We are phonetically building up to the Balrog. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. We'll get there, Adam. I'm totally not going to be lured into discussing Legolas's dialogue. Not even the inarticulate bits of Legolas's dialogue. But because we're done. It is super late. It is so late. As Druid's Fire was suggesting, maybe we should not do field trip tonight because it's already super late. I totally lost my head in discussing that second paragraph. But as I've said, no regrets. We'll try to stop in time to actually do the field trip next week. So cool. Kate's glad you could join us today. That was fun. And yes, it's late. So we will end there. Tune in next time when we find out what the Balrog is holding in each one of its hands and talk about the fact that it's a Balrog and that Legolas recognizes it and parse Gandalf's reaction. All this next week. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you in America. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone who's not in America. You can be happy at Thanksgiving too, even if it's not celebrated in your country. But happy Thanksgiving, everybody. And I will see you next week. I should be here next week. In fact, I believe I will be here the next 2 weeks. I have some family travel, but it's going to miss Tuesdays. So I should be here straight through towards the end. No. We should be good up till like Christmas week, basically, I think, for this, which means we'll be right through the Bridge of Khazad-dûm, in this whole Thanksgiving through to Christmas time. So there we go. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. See you next week. Have a good night now. Bye.